Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 28, Wednesday, October 16th, 2019.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I am your co-host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Emily.
Chim Chim Cheree, Courtney. We are as lucky can be to be joined by a special guest today.
That's right. So today we are featuring half of another podcasting dynamic duo. You can hear him along with his fellow co-host, former coworker, and fellow author Ken Pellman on the Sweep Spot podcast, where they detail not only their experiences formerly working in custodial at Disneyland, but also general Disney topics and interviews. Many of those custodial experiences have made their way into two books in the Cleaning the Kingdom series. The first, Insider Tales of Keeping Walt Disney's Dream Spotless, and the second, Night, Day, Past, and Present. We're pleased to welcome Lynn Barron to the show. Welcome, Lynn.
Thanks for having me.
Lynn, we're super excited to have you. And for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your podcast, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, your podcast, and your connection to Disney?
Okay. Well, it started before the podcast. I was in custodial at Disneyland, and I worked there for close to 11 years total. And grew up in Southern California, going to Disneyland my whole life, and pass holder even when I wasn't working there, and moved to Utah, family reasons, and had to quit. And I wanted to be connected somehow, stay connected to Disneyland somehow, and I discovered podcasts and started listening to them, and then decided that I had a niche that I could do something different than some of the other ones that I had heard. And not to say that those were bad, but I think everyone has their own little thing, and I think that's what makes everyone unique, and I thought I had one that was different. So I asked my friend Ken, who I'd worked with at Disneyland for a while, if he wanted to join me. He couldn't commit, but he said he would come on as a guest now and then. So then I asked another friend of mine, Laura, and she said she could do it. And then after a couple of years, she couldn't any longer, and Ken was able to full-time, and we've been doing it ever since. It's been a little over 8 years now. And within that time, we started to write our first book, Cleaning the Kingdom.
Very cool. I know Emily and I really relate to your story there because we're two friends and former co-workers. We worked together in college, but then both did the Disney College program. So we also use this as our way to stay connected and fill that Disney void, I guess, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sure. And it's so true, that podcast. What's great about this community is that there's a space for everyone. Mm-hmm. And we can all find that niche, that, like you said, that unique aspect that we can all bring to this. And yours is having such great firsthand experience working in Disneyland, in custodial, and having such really cool stories that we got to read in your books. And ours is we love to read.
So we blend together here, and we enjoyed reading those stories. So it sounds like you had a lot going on your podcast, but what inspired you to then put them down into a book?
Well, Ken and I working together would meet at lunch, and we would talk, and we would share what happened, earlier in the day. And we had stories that we shared that some of them were just unbelievable. And, we just kind of joked around and said, someday we're going to write a book, and I had no thoughts of even being an author, and I was like, yeah, sure. And so that was, in probably around 2002 when that was said, and we wrote the first book. It was released in 2015. So really, it was just our friendship and our stories from working together that brought it together.
That's pretty awesome. Especially because you guys did have really, really cool stories. I learned so much from reading your book, but also laughed along the way. You guys have a great sense of humor and voice in your books.
Oh, good.
But we are curious. You're our first authors we've had that the book is co-written. So we're curious about your writing process and what it's like to have two authors, both of you, write a book together. How do you compromise between your writing styles and your voices?
That was complicated because I'm in Utah and Ken is in California in Anaheim. And so we just started jotting down ideas to come up with chapter names first. And then we started to divide chapters up. Like I said, all right, I'll write that chapter, you write this. But then it kind of started to get complicated because he had stories he wanted to put in a chapter that I was writing. So we started sharing documents on Google Drive and putting in our own stories into each other's chapters. And then we self-edit each other's chapters. And it was a long process, but it actually went smoother than I thought it would go.
Google Docs are amazing. Emily and I are both big fans of them. We actually use it to put together our questions for the show often because we get it. We're in different states. So your first book is primarily your personal anecdotes, both you and Ken, and the second includes kind of more stories from fellow coworkers, former leaders, and even the extended family members of some of those leaders. What was the process like for including those?
Well, because we were lucky enough to have worked with some people that were there in the early days, I mean, it was incredible. I think Custodial is one of the few departments that had people that were working there. By the time we got there, there wasn't really anyone that was there when Walt was there. There may have been a few, but they weren't really in our department. But there was people that were there in the early 60s. Well, Walt was there then, but by that time he wasn't there as often. So they had some stories, but a lot of them, we had connections to these people already, so we just found, we contacted them and, hey, remember us? We worked together, and then started going from there. And that was how we kind of came up with whole chapters on certain cast members that we featured in the book, because they were so. There was a man named Harry that we have a whole chapter dedicated to, and I think he started in '64. So he worked with us. He retired when we were there, but we had worked with him for a while. So then we have a manager that was there, and so we were able. Because we worked some of these people, we were able to go back, and then also the podcast connected us with people, because after the first book, people came out of the woodwork. They were like, "Hey, you got to hear my story. You have to hear this." So that's when, and it's still happening, even after the second book. But everyone wants to tell the story, and I like that. But we can't tell everyone's. We can't write fast enough. But we included some of the early days, and we thought we'll start there and we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, I really liked hearing about that side, especially Harry's story having such a long and tenured career. I just love to hear those different cast member stories as well.
I think that was also one of the best parts about your book, and what made it so holistic in its experience is that it wasn't just you and Ken. There were so many other voices as well that it lended so much credit to your stories, but also showed what a family custodial is and how much experience you all do have and all the different things you get to do. So I think it really made the book so much better that you did include your listeners and your friends and your coworkers. It made it such a really cool story to read.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges that I remember, because I specifically wrote the chapter on Chuck Boyajian and Tom Ropa, and those were the two that pretty much started Custodial. Anything in any of the Disney parks, because they're clean and have certain standards, are because of these two people. anywhere in the world. It started back to these two people, and they're both gone. But after our first book, we had both of their children, separately, had contacted us and said, "Oh, I have to tell you about my dad," and this and that, because we did have a short little bit mention of them in our first book, but we didn't have any other information on them. So I interviewed both of their daughters, and I think the challenge was that there was conflict in story. Like, one had told me that one had started this certain standard, and then the other one said that they did. So then I was really trying to think, how do I do this? And I talked to a friend who's an author, and he said, you just tell it the way it's told to you. You just mentioned, Chuck's daughter Tina has said this, and then that way you're not choosing any of the sides, and you're just stating what was told to you. So I think that was one of the challenges, but it was a good challenge to have, because it was a lot of extra good information to have.
In addition to interviewing and including these stories, was there other research that you had to do for this book, or were your personal experiences in those interviews enough for you to put this all together?
Yeah, pretty much. There was some information with dates and things that we had to look up, but that was very small. Like, Chuck has a window on Main Street, and I had to look up when he got that exactly, and things like that, that I didn't even think to ask the daughters. I just thought, then when it came to that time, I thought, I could just look that up real quick and double check sources. But it was pretty easy. We do have a chapter in here on restrooms that I wanted to include in the first book, and the first book is 460 pages, and so we just thought we can't fit that in, and so I kind of included it. So it kind of stands out sometimes above the others. But one thing I wanted to mention about the restrooms was that it's such Disney puts such thought into the theming of each restroom. It's not just thrown in, put together, painted, and we're done. So they actually probably have Imagineers that they do work, on coloring and theming of the restrooms. So I wanted to feature the ones that I thought were unique.
I actually had a question about that chapter, because it's something I feel like I notice all the little signs at the parks, because they're different for men and women and for each of those. So I can just go ahead and ask it here. Yeah. With that chapter, this might be weird, but do you have a favorite among them? And then how do you think the restrooms, particularly those themed ones, add to the guest experience?
It sounds funny, but I do have a favorite.
No, I have favorites, and I didn't even work in Custodial. I'm like, that's the good one in Epcot.
I have favorites for different reasons.
Sure,
so
go right ahead.
I was actually just at Disneyland last week, and there's a restroom over behind it's the Innoventions building in between the Utopia is right there. And it's called the Innoventions restroom. And before that was called Skyway, because the Skyway to Fantasyland was just above it. But that restroom, it's the one in the book. It has little aliens, and then above it has so it says women twice and men. It has two different signs, but the signs above the alien signs are actually the original signs that were there when the Skyway opened in '59. So I like that one. But that restroom, it's not the reason I like it, but it's because it's big and it's usually quiet and it's not very crowded. That's one reason to like a restroom, right? But as far as theming, I think the Alice in Wonderland one has done one of the best. It's like the cards, the doors on the stalls. Yeah.
That's the one I think of for Disneyland immediately for theme, because it really, like, that just feels so immersive for sure.
I know, right?
I'll get there someday.
Yeah.
Now you know where to go when you gotta go.
Inventions, and then check out Alice in Wonderland bathrooms.
Yep.
Got it. So kind of going back to the book process, because believe me, we'll probably get back to the restrooms as well, because we have lots of questions.
Okay.
But we always ask our authors about your publishing process, because everyone's is unique. So how did you find an editor, a publisher, cover art, all those finishing touches that make a book a book?
So the publishing came about from there's a thing they have in our city here in St. George, Utah. It's at Christmas every year. It's like a fair. There's a bunch of vendors and they're selling different crafts and things. And there was a booth there at the this fair, and there's an author there, and he had a book called Hidden Mickey. And I thought, oh, that's neat. So I went up or my wife actually went up and talked to him and was talking about it. And then I kind of chimed in and said, I used to work there. And he said, I did too. And I said, no way. And he was a little bit older than I am, but he had worked on the canoes. His name is David Smith, not the archivist David Smith. Everyone gets that confused. Oh. But he writes books called Hidden Mickey, and they're novels. They're not about hidden Mickeys in the parks, but they're very good. You have to check it out.
We will.
But he was selling his books there, and so we got talking, and he said he's a publisher, and I said, oh, cool. And I didn't think much of it because we didn't have any thoughts of writing a book at that time. We had just started the podcast, and so I said, well, we have to have you on the podcast and talk about, your time working on the canoes. And so we did that. But then when it was time to write a book, he was the first person I thought of because he lives here in the same city. He worked at Disneyland. He has a publishing company. So it just seemed right. And he's really, really good guy. So he kind of got us in and kind of helped me format the book and everything. And the cover art came from a listener of the show. And that was Anna Karen. And she listened to our show, and somehow she helped us with the logo of our podcast. That's what it was. And yeah, so she did the logo, and then when it was time to do the book, it just seemed natural to ask her if she knew anything about, book covers. And so she just presented the idea with the castle on the front, and I thought it looked really good. She had taken the picture herself and kind of did a mock-up of a cover, and I said, that looks great. And so we just went with that. In the second book, because we have more on night custodial, I kind of had the idea of making I asked her if she could do the castle in daytime and night, kind of mesh it together, fade it. So she was able to do that, and it looks really good.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful castle. I think you might have the unique distinction of being one of our few authors who actually has an Audible copy of their books. So how does someone create an audiobook?
Well, because we did podcasting, we just recorded it ourselves, and it probably not as professional as some of the others, I think, because we actually recorded it over Skype, the audiobook. I had Ken because he has such a radio voice, and I asked him, could you just because we tried reading the chapters that we wrote, like the sections that we each wrote, and saying it just seemed very odd, and just kind of threw me off when I listened back to it, because you have one person speaking and then the next paragraph someone else, and I just thought it doesn't seem very smooth. So I just asked him to do it, and I did the recording part on my side, and then I did all the editing and put it together, and submitted it to Audible that way. Yeah, it was, and we're going to do the same thing with the second book eventually. I keep nagging Ken. I said, when are we going to start it? Because at D23 Expo, we had a lot of people asking, is this going to be on audio? So
I love that it's like an extension of the podcast, like just an extra long podcast episode.
It all kind of meshes together, and both the podcast and the book complement each other as far as helping get listeners or selling the book. It kind of goes both ways. And
I bet.
You do have such a unique story, though, that with your podcasting, you made friends with a publisher and someone who did your cover art, and then your unique ways of getting listeners. It's really cool how all of it, like you said, like fits together in this nice cycle.
Yeah.
I did have one more question about the audiobook. I looked at the time. The audiobook is about 13 hours. So if the audiobook itself is 13 hours, because it is a long book. That's a great. I was trying to listen to it. I was going for it for my I commute in the morning, so I was playing around with listening to the audiobook. But how long did it take to put together? Like, how big of a task is it? Not only did you write the book, but then you also put together the audiobook. So like, how long was that?
I don't know. It took us about, I think it was close to a year, because we would record our podcast. We put out an episode twice a month, so every other Friday night. And after we do that, then we'd stay up even later. I'd say, do you want to do some of the audiobook? Okay. So then we'd record. Sometimes we'd only do like 30 minutes, and then some nights we'd do like 2 hours. But then we'd have to go back and redo things. And so it took a while. And then Ken also had to kind of go back and rephrase things, rewrite it. Because sometimes he was telling my story in the way that we wrote it in the book. It's more present. So he kind of had to go in and readjust some of the words to make it flow smoother, I guess.
That makes sense.
Yeah. But this book is more written, I'm not very good at all these terms, but it's written more second person, I guess you would say. So it's written so it's easy. I keep telling him, like, it's going to be easy to read it. All you just have to do is read the book. You don't have to really adjust much, He's
right.
He's very reluctant to start on it, but we are going to do it. But he knows it's a lot of work, and I said, well, this is like half the size of the other one.
True. It wouldn't be as long then. I'm sure everyone will be looking forward to that. But let's jump into the book itself. What would you say you want readers to come away from when they read your book or listen to it for 13 hours?
Just the appreciation of custodial and the parks and how important it is to just to your whole visit, to your guest experience there. We've had people just from the podcast and the books say that they would, email me or somewhere on Facebook and say, hey, I went and thanked a custodian today.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we kind of encourage that, and I think that's just kind of the message out there. And also that, custodial is probably not the most, the first job that it might be for some people, but excuse me, for others, it might not be their first pick. When people think of jobs they want to work at Disneyland, they're like Jungle Cruise or Haunted Mansion and it's probably not custodial. It's not the most glamorous job, but it has a lot of benefits to it. And so I think that, and even working there, we would have guests come up and they would say, so when do you get to get promoted to work on a ride or something? So as if it was a lower,
It's not how that works.
Right. And actually we were probably getting paid more than the rides. But so it always kind of looked down upon it. And even that way amongst the other cast members that weren't in custodial, it kind of just seemed like we were second-class citizens at some time. And I'm sure we weren't treated that way by everyone, but it did seem that way at times. And so I just want everyone to know that, how important it was to the parks. And the whole thing that Walt had said is that his park is going to be different because it's going to be clean and safe. And that's because of, custodials are the people that make it that.
Absolutely. It's so important. I know Emily and I both went through Traditions, which for anyone who might not be familiar is the class where when you start as a cast member, kind of giving you that foundation, and it's drilled in for everyone from day one. That Disney scoop, pick up any trash that you see, but custodial really is the heart of that and keeping that mission alive.
Yeah, for sure. And we were out there amongst the guests more, so we would take the hit sometimes, or we were there to help the guests in a dire need sometimes. There's many situations I could talk about that where we were in need that were just small things that maybe made a guest day, that maybe someone standing behind a control panel on a ride wouldn't be able to do,
It is so true that custodial does so much, and I really think your book drove that home. Like, I heard that reinforced through every chapter that without custodial you would not have the guest experience that you expect from a Disney park. And I think you guys did a really good job of driving that home. It shows, it pays off. Like you said, you have listeners and people who have contacted you that they're like, hey, I thanked a custodian today. And that's really cool that you're, creating this face now for custodial that, should have been there the whole time. But I learned so much. I was definitely one of those people that I've always appreciated custodial, but I had no idea half the things you guys did, especially like that custodial is in charge of cleaning parade floats and all the other areas around the parks and things that you do. Like, I didn't know you cleaned attractions, like walking through attractions and helping with those kinds of spills. I thought that was like a whole separate team of attractions people that did that. So that floored me of how much area you guys cover.
Yeah, that was one of the perks, I would say, is just to pretty much go anywhere we wanted because people would just assume we're going there to clean something. So as a fan of Disney parks, Disneyland, especially, to see some of the behind the scenes things. And some people had asked us this on, I had been on other shows and they had said, well, doesn't that ruin the magic? And for Ken and I could speak for Ken also, is that it enhanced it because to see how they do things, and some of it is so low budget that you're like, wow, I thought that was, some extravagant thing that was made to make it look that way, and it really wasn't. So it's just kind of fun to see how things work behind the scenes.
Absolutely. I think that's what makes it such a unique role. And oftentimes, I know Emily and I were in different Facebook groups for the Disney College program. And like you said, you'll see some people who are excited for the role or others who maybe that wasn't quite what they're expecting. Would you have any advice for those cast members who are kind of entering that role for the first time as part of a college program, maybe?
In custodial?
Yeah.
Yeah. Just from what I'd said and how important it is and the legacy that they carry and how important it is to keep the parks clean, it's something that kind of kept in my mind the whole time I was there. Kind of the whole Walt thing was, every time I'd see something just really trashed, I'd trip and try to clean it up because I knew that, Walt's watching. No, but but it did feel that way in some way, and I know that sounds kind of cheesy maybe, but it really did feel that way, and sometimes.
That's really cool. And one of the things that stood out to me because I was reflecting on like my park experience, and it's interesting, all three of us have very different park experience. Courtney's in attractions, I was in entertainment, you were in custodial. And I'll admit, as I was reading through and seeing, your experiences through your eyes, I was jealous at times because it's really true how unique your role is, that you do get to go to so many different places. Like in entertainment, my friends Mickey and Minnie, they took the spotlight and they made a lot of connections with guests, but I personally didn't get to make a lot of connections with guests. And you've walked away with friends that have lasted you years and, park regulars. And that's a really cool, unique piece of your job. But I do want to ask, because you have all of that space to roam and you have lots of different facets of your job, what is your favorite way that you got to make magic for guests?
Probably when there's a need to step in and save the day in a way. Like maybe we were able to, if someone had just got some popcorn, handed it to their kid and it dumps all over the ground. We had the ability to take the carton, walk over to the popcorn stand, get a new one and take it back to them. Something that small, stays in a guest's mind. Like, wow, that was nice. There's other times where someone had made a mess on themselves or whatever the situation was, where they needed new clothes or new pants or something. And we, at the time, had the ability, I don't know if it's that way now, but we had the ability, we had these little things we could take in to a shop and we could get them a new sweatshirt or whatever they had needed. And I enjoyed doing those sort of things because you knew that you were making an impact.
I think that really is the Disney difference. And like you said, a lot of guests remember even just those small, kind gestures for sure. One of the things that I enjoyed within the book was where you went through each of the different lands. I think especially, I don't know if Emily, if that was fun for you, having not been to Disneyland, like it gave such a good overview, but I'd love to know which of the lands was your favorite place to work.
I think mine was on the Ken and I both. We liked working on they call it the West Side, which was pretty much Critter Country, New Orleans, Adventureland, and Frontierland. So and because we were neighbors a lot, I would sometimes have Adventureland, Critter Country, and he would have Adventureland. Or I'm sorry, New Orleans, Critter Country, and then he would have Adventureland, Frontierland, and we would be neighbors that way. But I would say that side of the park was always exciting because of you had the Rivers of America there. We enjoyed, it has more trees, I think, on that side, which was always good.
I can see that.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. So that I would say probably that side of the park was my favorite.
So I have going back to our restroom question from earlier, kind of have a follow-up about also kind of your favorite. I thought it was really interesting. And again, this is because I knew very little about custodial before reading this book, but I found it interesting that you said a lot of custodial staff, bathrooms was not the least favorite assignment. And I think a lot of people who are not knowledgeable about this would think that it would be. So I thought that was so incredibly interesting. I was wondering if you could, in your words, kind of summarize that for us.
Well, some people wanted to work restrooms because it did pay a little bit more money. I think it was 75 cents more an hour to do restrooms. So that was an enticement for some people. And then others liked the ability, the freedom, because there is sort of a freedom to it, even more than sweeping in an area. Because in an area you're assigned, so you might be working at Adventure Frontierland, but you are then assigned a small area within that to sweep, and you're supposed to just stay in that area. But in restrooms, especially men, the reason I say men is, I'll explain that later, but in restrooms, for men, you're able to go from one restroom to the next and walk. So you kind of get to go outside, then you go into the restroom, clean it, check it, and then move to the next one. But the reason the men had more was that there was probably less stalls and less area to clean. The women's restroom, especially the Adventureland, I think there's 34, 36 stalls in that restroom.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So the women, that would be their whole shift, because by the time they were done with, say, the 36th stall, they had to start over again. So, yeah.
I thought it was funny when you mentioned it was harder, I guess, for women to clean women's restrooms because we actually wash our hands, and I had to laugh at that.
Yeah. You had this.
I was like, oops.
Stock paper towels more often than the women's.
Yeah, you said use the facilities to its fullest extent.
Right.
Mirrors, changing tables,
right.
Bathroom stalls, sinks.
I have another themed and favorite question because something sticks out to me just in terms of another iconic Disney staple is that the trash cans change from land to land. So do you have a favorite design among those?
Man, that's a hard one. I like the way that the Haunted Mansion area trash cans look. You've probably seen those. I think they're green, and I'm colorblind, so I can't tell you. I think they're like a green and a blue, a purple. But I like the way those look. And then the ones around the Matterhorn are really neat looking, too. They kind of have that like a little German, I don't know, like a village look to it, maybe. I'm really bad at describing that. But I like the way that those look. But, yeah, you're right. The trash cans are different in every land to go with the theming of that.
I feel like I'm very partial to Tomorrowland trash cans, not just because I worked in Tomorrowland, but I loved Push the Talking Trash Can here at Walt Disney World, and I miss him.
Yeah, we had Push for a little while. I don't know what happened, but yeah, that was really neat to watch.
I had one of those, just, the little Disney memories that stick out with you. Like, I was 8 years old, and Push decided that I was his girlfriend, and then he followed me around Tomorrowland. But, of course, I was, 8, and I was like, I don't want anything to do with this boy trash can, or whatever. So cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
In Walt Disney World, I'm a fan of the Storybook Circus trash cans. I just like the really bright bright colors.
They almost remind me of popcorn boxes, like a classic carnival or something.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that theme. it's so interesting how like a trash can, it brings it all together.
Well, no, lately I've seen they have salt and pepper shakers. I have some.
Yes.
They have Christmas ornaments.
They're going all in on the trash cans.
Yeah.
Though I know popcorn is a sensitive subject for you, right?
Yeah.
All the mess.
Despise it. No.
One time someone spilled popcorn all over a Space Mountain rocket. And you're not supposed to be able to bring popcorn into the building, but somehow it got through. And so I sympathized there for sure. I was like, ooh, that was a mess.
Yeah, it always depended on it seemed like they had slurry. The surfaces were more of like a slurry. It was really smooth, and they got away from that and went to get more theming to the areas to make the ground look like, instead of just a plain. So then they had these pavers, and the popcorn would just get stuck down in there. And,
oh gosh, the kernels.
Right. It gets smashed, and that's why we weren't real happy about popcorn.
See, on the opposite end, Mickey and Minnie love popcorn because it's easy to clean off their clothes because they hug a lot of people every day. Ice cream, on the other hand,
not so.
A little sticky, and Mickey likes his gloves to stay white, like nice and shiny white. But that Mickey Premium bar that comes to meet Mickey, he loves Mickey-shaped food, but Mickey Premium bars sometimes can not. Minnie doesn't like that she has to wash so many gloves.
Especially in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So after spending this time in your role, I know for Courtney and I, spending time in our roles, it's really changed who we are as people. So I kind of want to hear from you, like, how has your experience benefited you? But then also kind of a fun question. Have you found that your personal at-home cleaning habits were enhanced after becoming part of Custodial?
I think that I was always kind of shy, and I think being, especially in Custodial where we're out amongst the guests and being asked questions all the time, helped me to be more assertive and come out a little bit as far as talking to people and feel more comfortable speaking to people directly and giving directions and helping. I would say that's one of the things. And then as far as the skills that I learned, my career, I guess, didn't really go in the direction I thought it was going to go, which is fine. I just kind of, go where things take me. But it gave me the skills to the job that I'm a custodian at a middle school. And when we moved here, it's a smaller town and it's really hard to find a job. But when I went to my first interview, they saw I worked at Disneyland, and the interview went from asking me questions about my qualifications to Disneyland trivia, and and it was really a good thing to have on your resume, as you probably know, because people they love Disney and they want to talk about it. And so I would say that it gave me the skills and just the ability to most people know that people that worked at Disney parks have a certain quality about them.
You must have the cleanest middle school in the entire district. Because you brought that Disneyland custodial quality.
Yeah, I try to.
Do you still point with 2 fingers?
Yes, today I did.
It never leaves you.
I know.
Yeah, even for me. I was, Mickey was showing me how to Mickey point.
Mm-hmm.
I still point with 2 fingers, and I didn't get to, do that too often, and I still do it. My students have picked up on it. I'm a teacher,
okay.
Lynn, so I love that you work in a school. But yeah, they pick up on it too because they see those BuzzFeed articles or like things that like things you didn't know about Disney, but a cast member reads it and we're like, that's common knowledge. But they're like, you point with 2 fingers. I'm like, yes.
Oh,
okay.
It doesn't leave. It's just ingrained in you for sure. So you talked a little bit about transitioning into another role, and you've described this in your book, but maybe for our audience, what was it like for you to leave Disneyland and the Disney company?
It was kind of at the time, and I'm just being honest. I think like any job, I don't want to use the word you get tired of it, but it gets redundant. and I know that sounds like, how can that be even at Disneyland? But it did, and it was starting to get to me where I saw people that were there 15, 20 years that kind of had this bitterness about them that I started to, it was almost contagious. I started to see it in myself, and I thought, maybe it's a good thing I am leaving, because I don't want to become that person. And it's understandable sometimes how you could get that way. But so I would say that at the time when it happened, I was kind of in a relieved in a way. But then very shortly after, it was sort of a shock. Like sort of, it was just really sad. And I don't, it's hard to describe. It's like being taken away from your family or something. And I wanted to stay connected, and that's kind of like what I was saying about reaching out and trying to find that in another way. And when I found podcasting, I thought, oh, this is neat, I get to listen, and and because of my job now, I could have like one earbud in and listen to podcasts like all day long. So that's what I did.
I think what you've described we call within the Disney College program the post-Disney depression, and it is very real.
It is. And
I've been graduated 5 years now, and I still struggle with post-Disney depression.
Yeah. I go to parks, I was there last week with my family, and I thought, man, I could still be here doing this, but in a way, like I said, it's probably a good thing, but I guess it's all about your attitude and the way you look at things.
When you go to visit, do you still have friends who work in the department and you're able to see?
Yeah, all the time.
That's great.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I've been gone now for 12 years, and there's a lot of people I don't know. And I bet talking to a cast member and just asking him, how long you've been here? And I told him what my role there, what I did. And he was in custodial, and he said, oh, I've been here 10 years. Wow. It's about as long as I was there. He was at that point, and I've already been gone. It's just kind of weird to think.
Yeah, I really liked how that chapter really wrapped up your first book. And I thought it led nicely into your second book of why there's so many more stories to tell. But I think for sure, cast members or former cast members like myself definitely empathized with how you felt with leaving, because it is kind of a relief at first. You're ready for new adventures. I definitely felt that. But then when you start seeing pictures from people who still work there, and you're right, visiting's not quite the same after you've been there as a cast member. But I think you wrapped that up so nicely about how, your experience gave you so much to move forward as well. So I really enjoyed how you wrapped up the book. And then I liked how you kind of, with your appendix section, gave some advice to park goers. And, sometimes in that role, like, you wish you could just tell people some things. But, in a nice Disney way, what would be your, PSA to park goers? Public service announcement.
I don't even remember that part of the book. It almost seems like sometimes, like when we record a podcast episode, as soon as we're done recording, I do the editing. I move on to the next one, and then people will say, "Oh, in episode, 120, I remember you talked about." I thought, I don't even remember that. I don't remember that, but I do. I do think. Well, it's kind of what the whole theme of what I've been saying is just the appreciation for custodial. Patience with cast members in general. I see so many guests, even just recently, get angry with cast members, and I thought, they don't get paid a lot. There are good perks to working there and things, but people kind of mistreat them like they're not like human or something. I don't know. It's just, you'd be amazed on some of the stuff I've seen and been said to, things have been.
Oh, I think we know too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure.
That's right. Yeah. You do. Yeah. So I would say just try to have patience and understand the cast members are just people too, and they're there. They're trying to serve you and trying to make your visit as good as possible.
I think that's great advice, and definitely one to drive home for sure. You just have to lead with kindness, and everybody's going to walk away a little happier. Just on a general Disneyland note, you are our first Disneyland topic that we've covered on this show. So I'd love to know if you just have any general suggestions for any first-time Disneyland goers. Possibly Emily in the future. We'll get her there.
Yeah. Well, I think some of it is just like a Disney park. You'll probably agree I think that getting there at rope drop is important. Those first 2 to 3 hours are crucial if you want to get on some attractions that normally have long waits. And I think just by listening to other podcasts, I think in Disney World that's even more important because the way they do fast passes, like they're harder to get. And
yeah, our fast pass systems are very different between the two parks.
And that's the other thing is that they have this Max Pass thing now on your phone, and it's so cool. I mean, all it does is save you the time of going to remember the paper, the machines that would spit out the paper tickets. Yeah. It just saves you the time of going over and doing that. But at the same time, it reminds you, it'll tell you, you can make another fast pass at this time, and it'll tell you. So then sometimes I'll even set a timer at that time so I know exactly when I could make the next one.
Max Pass is so worth it. I think you'll appreciate what I'm about to say since you know the lay of the land. When we visited, my family and I, in 2016, we got there for rope drop. We did a little bit of extra magic hours, knocked out Peter Pan. They're like, okay, it's time for our next fast pass, like that we can grab one. And so we're in Fantasyland, and I say, okay, I'm gonna go get one for Indiana Jones. Like, you guys stay here, and I'm just gonna be the runner, so to speak, take everybody's tickets, go get them. And I get to Indiana Jones, and it's closed, so they're not giving out fast passes. So then I'm like, okay, I guess I'm going to go to Splash Mountain. So then by that point, I'm all the way back in Critter Country, then trying to get back to Fantasyland to my family. And they're like, where did you go? And I'm like, it was closed. I got another fast pass. So having it on the phone was absolutely worth it. I think that's some great advice.
Yeah, and then the latest thing is this mobile ordering, and utilize that as much as you can, because I've wanted to get a Dole Whip, and there was a line they sell it at the little 2 places now, but the main place was at this little tiki hut thing in front of the tiki room, and there was a line that went all the way around the corner, and I got on my phone, put in Dole Whip, you pay, and you pay with your credit card. It just goes right on there. I literally walked up like a minute after I put my order in, and they called my name and handed me a Dole Whip. I almost feel like you're cheating in a way, but no, it's just
you're like, you guys can do this too. I'm not cutting.
But I don't want too many people.
Take out your phone.
Yeah, I don't want too many people to know. So.
True.
I always feel that way when you hear attractions cast members say, like, please fill in all available space, and then someone looks at you when, like, you move next to them when you were behind them, and you're like, I'm not cheating. They said fill in available space. I'm filling in the space. I'm not cutting, I promise.
Yeah, they do that in Casey Jr. There's like a little little pen that they put people in, like you're saying, and it's wider than a narrow line. So when they tell you to move up, and then I go all the way up towards the front, and then people, yeah, you're right. People look at you, give you a dirty look. Did you listen to what they said?
Listen to your cast members.
Yeah.
But yeah, learning Max Pass is definitely something, and it seems really cool to me that it's same day, right? Like, you can't book dates in advance.
No, just right. And you have to be on property, although where I stayed at Candy Cane Inn, I found that, and I think it's because it backs up right to the back of California Adventure, that I'm able to make Fast Pass from my hotel room.
Ooh, insider secret. I'll have to stay there.
Yeah.
But I like that it's like equal opportunity, not this, 60, 90 days out, and then you're kind of stuck with whatever's left.
Right. Yeah, that makes me anxious when I think, because I've been to Florida once. We went there on our honeymoon, but that was in 1999. We just had our 20th anniversary last week. But
congratulations.
Thank you. But that was, so I haven't been since 1999, and that was when Fast Passes were just brand new, the paper ones. So when I hear, and we've talked about going back sometime, but and I hear about all this, I think, man, it makes me anxiety just thinking about trying to get fast passes.
If you ever need advice and you make your way out here, I am happy to help.
Okay, yeah, for sure.
Jedi Master Courtney on the fast passes.
Okay.
So speaking of advice, bringing this back to your book, you've now written 2 books, done the audiobooks. What advice do you give for an aspiring Disney author?
Do something like we were talking in the beginning with a niche, like something that you can bring that is different, because I'm seeing more and more now that publishing books are easier to do. I'm seeing more and more books have a lot of repetitiveness, and so I would say find something that first of all, find something you have a passion for, and write about that, and then find a unique way to approach it. Maybe if it's you're I don't want to give away any of my ideas, but but if you want to write a book about, I don't know, Indiana Jones, then the ride there at Disneyland, you maybe come at it from a different approach than someone else might normally do. And I've seen a lot of unique ways that people have been doing it, but I've also, like I said, seen a lot of repetitiveness, the way that maybe just a plain, maybe history telling of something, which is nothing wrong with, but at the same time, it's kind of refreshing to see something taken a different approach.
I think that we can see the success of your advice, though, that, I don't know of any other Disney custodial books that are out there. So you found your niche, and look at the listeners and the readership that you and Ken have.
Right. Yeah. So find that and go for it. Do and research things, double check things. That was something that someone gave me advice about when I was starting to put facts in and things, is double check all your research, not just one, but maybe have 2 or 3 different sources that can back it up, so it's right.
I think that's definitely great advice all around. And as you said, there are so many books out there, but our favorite final question whenever we interview an author is, what is your favorite Disney book? And I know that might be a loaded question.
Ooh. So I am in my office here, and books are one of the things that I collect the most of out of all the Disney things that I have. And I don't know how many. I probably have hundreds, but so it depends on the subject. But if you're just going to say Disneyland, because that's my favorite park, favorite thing I like to read about, is there's a book called Disneyland: The Nickel Tour, and it's very expensive to find now. But if you can find it for a decent price, because I've seen it up to $1,000. But if you,
oh wow,
oh yeah, but
that's
you
rare.
Can probably find one for around between $200 to $500. But that is absolutely the best book, written by Bruce Gordon and David Mumford. They're both not with us anymore, and they wrote this book based off of postcards, Disneyland postcards through the years, and then they tell history of Disneyland using those postcards as photos for the book. And it's just amazing the way it's laid out. Beautiful book, lots of pictures, lots of information too to read. I would say that's my favorite. Everyone has a collection of something, and that's like the main, their gold. But one author that we have on our show quite often, and I don't know if he's been on your show. I listen to your podcast. I don't think he has. His name is.
No, I think we know who you're going to say. Go right ahead.
Jim Korkis he is one of the greatest guys, the most I mean, when he comes on our show, we just ask him one question and we sit back, and then and it just goes for like hours. But he is a wealth of information, and he just puts out books, left and right. But yeah, you got to have Jim on. I could even help you with that. But
we would love that. He's definitely on our bucket list. We've heard him over on Lou Mangello's show as well, and he's just such a wealth of information. Like, talk about outputting books. He's probably up to like 20 or so now?
No, I'm looking here. I have at least 10 of them. But yeah, he's a great guy. So I would say, as far as anything you read from his books, is right, because he does so much research. It's just amazing.
Lynn, thank you so much for joining us. This was a great interview. I'm looking at the time. I can't believe we've been here talking so long. This was awesome.
Oh, no problem.
But stick around with us for a second because we have one final question for you. But our next episode, you may have seen the recent Twitter thread listing everything that's going to be on Disney Plus. So there's less than 30 days until the service launches, and all of you are just as likely as we are that we are super excited for this. So in early November, we plan to share the literary companion to Disney Plus, detailing what you can read along with to then later watch on Disney Plus. So Lynn, one final question. What are you looking forward to?
Oh, so I signed up for that at D23. They were doing a deal where you could pay 3 years ahead of time. And I think, I remember what I paid, $150 for 3 years. But so I looked at the list that they put out just a couple days ago. They put out because there had been list of rumors, but I put out an official one just the other day. And I would say some of the older movies that were in the 60s, 70s. There's Absent-Minded. There's just so many. The Swiss Family Robinson. There's just so many of those great old movies that maybe didn't get as much attention. Herbie, Love Bug, Shaggy DA. I'm looking forward to some of that. Yeah.
I am too. I feel like that's definitely, in terms of my wealth of Disney knowledge, so to speak, that's definitely one of the weaker points. Things that we didn't maybe own on VHS as a family when I was younger, and definitely would love to explore some of those more. So that'll be fun. In the meantime, our listeners can keep up with us at Book of the Mouse Club on Twitter and Instagram. We are at Book of the Mouse. And email with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. But where can folks keep up with you, Lynn, and how can they find the Sweep Spot?
So our podcast, The Sweep Spot, is available wherever podcasts are found: iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, I think Google Music. I don't just all the, can't even think of all of them, but just pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts. And then we have a website, thesweepspot.com. We have a Facebook page and a group page, The Sweep Spot, that you can like and join. I think I'm on Twitter. I'm Lynn Sweep Spot, and then I'm just The Sweep Spot on Instagram. So, but all that information you can find on our website, including you can buy autographed copies of our both books right now, and those are hard to come by because I only see Ken every now and then. So to get some books signed from him that I can send out, because I'll send them out personally from our website. You can buy them there. It's a PayPal link, and then I ship them out. I sign them, and if you want it personalized, you can do that too. But you can get both books at the website. We have T-shirts and all the information over there.
Very cool. We'll be sure to put the link to the website and those autographed copies in our show description as well, so listeners can easily find it. As we close our episode, we always like to have our guests do the honors of take us out with a closing quote.
One that we use in Custodial was, "Nobody does it better." That was our custodial quote that they had lit on the wall in our custodial office. Another one is in chapter 1. It's the very beginning. This is something that Chuck said, and it's in our book. It says, "If it's dirty, clean it. If it's clean, polish it. If it's polished, keep it that way."
I like it. That's advice you can take even within your own personal life. Good reminder.
Yeah.
Definitely the Disney quality right there.
Yep.
Well, thank you again for joining us. It has been our pleasure to chat with you and dig even deeper into those stories behind Cleaning the Kingdom.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun talking with you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks so much. Bye, listeners.
Book of the Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.